All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Kabbalah Café. This is our weekly look at all things mystical. And today, the topic is, what we're really going to focus on is, why did the soul come down to this world? And it's a question that the mystics ask again and again in many different sources, many different places. Many Kabbalistic texts will address this very same question. Lama yarda hanashama lamata, why did the soul come below? What was the purpose? What is the purpose of the descent? Now, you and I might take it for granted. And the reason why you and I might take it for granted is because, and you should just, let me take a half a step back. This is not that much different than the question of why are we here? Which philosophers and thinkers and mystics and spiritualists have asked since time immemorial. Why are we here? Or the age-old question, how did we get here? And how did we get here is sometimes tied into that question of why we're here. I remember hearing an anecdote from a rabbi. You know, this kid asked the mother, you know, where do we come from? And the mother starts getting all like embarrassed. Well, you know, this. That's not what the kid wants to know. The kid just does not asking. It's not a loaded question. Maybe at some stage there might be a bit of a different type of question, but it's more of like, why are we here? How did we get here? It's all circling around the same question, which is why? Why this? Why any of this? And if we want to think about the question, I think it's sometimes interesting that we even ask this question, because we've been here for so long, not necessarily individually, but collectively. Where else should we be? Someone's like, why are we here? Do you have another place that you'd rather be? Like, is there another option that you're thinking of that makes more sense than being here? I mean, we've been here as long as we've known. So what's the question? But somehow, deep inside, we know this truth, and that is that we don't really belong here. We get this, there's some sort of innate sense that maybe we don't exactly belong here. To which we ask the question, why are we here? And Kabbalah elaborates on the question and sets up the question as follows. The soul is a chelek Elokah, is a piece of God. Kabbalah teaches that the soul that we have, and yes, in Kabbalah we talk about two different souls, a godly soul and an animal soul. To be more specific, I'm referring now to the godly soul. The godly soul is a piece of God. Hence the name, godly soul, right? Chelek Elokah mima'al mamash, literally a piece of God above. And when we say literally, it's you know, when people say literally, they mean figuratively. So is it a piece of God that every soul pulls a part of God away? I don't think that's what it means. But it means it's like a piece of God's core that still can be, you know, replicated in other people and not pull away from the original. So we're all a piece of God. And so the question becomes, if you're sensitive to that the godly soul in every single human being is a piece of God, so then the question almost asks itself, and that is, why would God, who we believe to be a kind and loving God, why would God take a piece of himself, a beautiful, pure, innocent soul, and put it in this crazy place? I always love flying into Las Vegas. I don't fly into Las Vegas often. But when I have, Las Vegas is, you talked about flying into Rome and getting like this, like a coffee like this. Okay, you fly into Vegas, you get off the plane, you get jetway, you get into the terminal. The first thing you see, slot machines. It's like, I didn't even, like, what's happening here? The first thing you see, you come off the plane, already they're encouraging the gambling. Boom, number one, fresh out of the gate. Listen, Vegas is Vegas. And what happens in Vegas, of course, stays in Vegas, as one knows. But the idea is that when you think about, if you're sensitive to the soul, the question again asks itself, why would God take a piece of himself? Why would God take a beautiful, pure neshama, beautiful, pure soul, and send it into this mishuggah place, into this crazy world? What's the purpose? Now, as many times as this question is asked, it's also answered. And it almost seems like every time you open up a different ancient Kabbalistic text, you'll find a different answer. Now, is it a different answer? Is it a different form of the same answer? I'll let you decide. But today I want to share 3 answers, 3 perspectives on the purpose of why we're here, specifically why the soul descends into this earthly plane, and why wasn't it enough for God to be up wherever, I don't know, up, down, whatever, for God wherever He is, to have all of the beauty and all of the purity and all of the holiness and all the souls connected. Why wasn't that enough? What's the deal with the soul coming down, Lamanta coming down below? What's the deal with that? All right, so let's go through some answers. Classic answer that's given is that the soul is being tested. Up in heaven, the soul is on point, true to God. The soul is plugged in. The question is, that's too easy. To be plugged into spirituality in heaven, Yasher Koach, as they say. Thank you very much. That's too easy. Can you be plugged in middle of a circus? It's like, I'll give you an example. So, can you concentrate on prayer standing on Yom Kippur in synagogue? Yeah, I think so. Maybe you're hungry, but like more or less. Can you concentrate on God in prayer standing in middle of the 50-yard line, sideline, whatever, in middle of the Super Bowl? Probably not. It'll probably be a little bit harder, given all the chaos, right? It's just so much going on. So the question is, and this is the test of the soul, it's a nisayon, it's a test. Can the soul remain faithful to God even in a foreign environment? To stay faithful to God in a divine environment, easy. To stay faithful to God in a foreign, non-spiritual environment, that would be an accomplishment. And that's the question. The question is, soul, how strong are you? And for this, we have so many different parables that the mystics and Hasidic masters gave about kings and princes, and the prince grows up in the palace of the king and the queen of his parents, and the king wants to test the prince to see if the prince is really good, is really true to the king's teachings and whatever, and so he sends the prince out into the country to be amongst the people and to see if even amongst the people, if the prince will remain princely and remain of that type of stature and retain his values, etc. And that's essentially what happens. The neshama comes down, the soul comes down below, the godly soul comes down below. It encounters all sorts of craziness, all sorts of distractions, nonsense. And the question is, can the soul can the soul kind of express spirituality, spiritual commitment, devotion to God? Can it do a mitzvah, study Torah, carve out time for prayer, even amidst all of the other stuff? And when it does, it's way more valuable than the full-time connection that it had above in heaven pales in comparison to the few moments that it might eke out of every day of connection, because this was born of battle and struggle, whereas the one above, not the one above, but the connection above was autopilot. Make sense? That's a simple answer. It's one answer. Another answer. Kabbalah says, let's go deeper. And what's the deeper answer? The deeper answer is the soul is not coming down for its own purpose, for itself. Meaning the question is almost like a misleading question. Why did the soul come down? It was doing fine in heaven. True. But what if the soul is not coming down for itself? What if it has a mission that it can only accomplish down here? Not a mission for its own benefit, but a mission for the benefit of a different party. A different party that inhabits this environment, and that the soul can only benefit when it too encounters this other element in this environment. So many vague pronouns here. Let me explain. Kabbalah teaches in the second answer, and you should know what I'm sharing with you is a compilation. I'm culling a lot of ideas from Kabbalah, kind of distilling it into, understandable, pretty, I think, fairly simple, straightforward channels. It's not like you'll open up a Kabbalistic text and say, here's the 3 reasons why. It's not like a BuzzFeed article, like 3 reasons why your soul came below, and 5 more that you never thought, you never expected. That's not, right, +5 more, it definitely would do that. That's not what you'll find in a Kabbalistic text. But again, culling from it, you'll encounter a second rationale. And the second rationale is the soul is not coming down for its own benefit. The soul is coming down below in order to refine the body and the animal soul. And so now that I mentioned animal soul for the second time, let's pause for a moment and let's explain a little bit about the animal soul. So Kabbalah teaches that every human being possesses two souls, a godly soul and an animal soul. Animal soul is also referred to as, simultaneously, it's got a second ID, just, in case you need two IDs. It's also called the Nefesh HaChayunit, which means the animating soul, or the vivifying soul, or the life-giving soul. All three would be chayunit, meaning chayut, chay, alive. It's the soul of animation, the soul of vivification, the soul of life. It's the soul of vitality, and it's also the natural soul, and it's also called the animal soul. All of that is one soul. I know I gave a lot of names for it, but it's all one category of soul. And then the other soul is the godly soul. So what's this soul? This soul is the energy that you have for your biological life. In other words, the fact that you're alive. It's almost like, if you want to kind of think about it, it's like, I don't know, you have a watch. I have a watch. Do people still wear watches? I don't know, I still wear a watch. It's a watch, and imagine if there was no battery, the watch wouldn't move. A body without a soul doesn't move. I don't know, hopefully never encountered that, but sometimes have encountered that. I've encountered that. Encounter a person who's passed away, and the body is there, but there's no life. And so what is that? If it's only body, well then a moment before, a moment after, same body, same hardware. What's going on? Why is it not operating? Okay, so the battery's gone. Battery is, disconnected. That's what we call the Nefesh HaChayunit, the life-giving soul. It's not specifically a godly soul, which we'll contrast in a moment, but it's a soul that gives life, gives animation. It also gives us our emotional reality, our intellectual capacity. All of that stuff is all included in the soul, and it is very much just a human soul. However, Kabbalah also refers to the soul as an animal soul. Why? Because there's not much that differentiates this soul from the soul that's in an animal. Animals also have souls. So what's the difference? Souls move, they're animated, they're alive. There are animal corpses and live animals, and one doesn't have a soul and one has a soul, just like humans? Sure. Check that. Animals can feel emotions, humans can feel emotions? Check that. Animals can think, humans can think? Check that. So essentially, this first soul of a human being is not that much different than the soul of an animal. Okay, can we think on a little bit of a deeper level? Sure. Yes, we can outsmart animals typically. That's why we have, I'm not advocating for this at all, I'm just saying that's why we have zoos and they don't have people in cages, we have animals. I'm not justifying this, just saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying that we have more intelligence, we figure out how to, we control, we have dominion over the animal, fine. Great, but essentially the human being is a more refined or whatever animal on this level of soul, and that's what we call the animal soul. It's not a derogatory term, it's just more of it's instinct. Well, how do animals operate? You're hungry, you eat. You see something vulnerable, you go after it. And you and I have that instinct within us as well. We want something, we go for it. And if we feel scared and threatened, we might lash back at someone else. So these are all natural human traits. And when a person behaves like this, you might even hear the expression, somebody justifying it and saying, well, they're only human. And what they really mean is that they're only a human animal. And if you studied biology and science like I did in school as a kid, and they would talk about the taxonomy of, the taxonomy of, existence and this world, and they would tell you that there's 3 categories of life: mineral, vegetation, and animal. Whereas human, part of the animal. And that's how, and Kabbalah, on an animal soul level agrees with that. That's, a little bit different, but essentially kind of the same. But the big deal is that we also have a godly soul that allows us to rise above instinct, to rise above what is most immediately beneficial to self and do what is for the betterment of others or for a higher purpose altogether, for God. And that's something that an animal can't really choose. Because at the end of the day, an animal will always choose, how do I know? I don't know. I haven't interviewed all the animals. But my understanding is, there's a famous story they tell about the Rambam, Maimonides, who was always locked in a debate with another great philosopher and maybe physician of the time. One second. Who was of the opinion that you can train animals to be like humans. And Rambam, Maimonides, says animals will always remain animals. This guy said, no, I'm going to invite you to a feast, and at this feast, I'm going to have cats. Not like mark cats. No, I mean like animal cats, C-A-T-S. Not the musical either, right? Cats as waiters carrying the platters of food at this banquet. Maimonides shows up. And at the banquet, one second, and at the banquet, what does he do? He pulls out a mouse from a box in his pocket, or his bag, or his satchel, or his little shopping bag, 1,000 years ago, whatever he had. And he pulls it out and he drops it on the floor. And the mouse starts running, and what do you think the cats do? The platters go flying. If this were a slow-mo movie, you would see like the platters and the hummus. I don't know what they were eating then, but I'm just imagining it. Just like streaking like fruit ninja style, like through the air as they go after the mouse. Because at the end of the day, if you're a cat and you see a mouse, self-control ceases. If you're a human being, we hold you to a higher expectation. Now, that doesn't mean that human beings always act in a higher way, but we have the capacity to do that. And where is that capacity? From? Not from the animal soul. From the animal soul, instinct. From the godly soul is where the ability comes to transcend instinct, to transcend living a reactive type of existence, and to mindfully and proactively choose how we are going to live our lives. And so we say like this, yes, would I want that? Absolutely. Do I feel like I need that? Might be. Could I take it easily? Whatever it is, I'm leaving it very vague intentionally. Yes. But will I do it? No. Why? Because it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing. Moral compass, not the right thing. So you can transcend what you really want, what you really feel like you need, because it's not the right thing. Yeah, because I'm a human. Because I'm a mensch. It's one of the great differences in language. In English, we say, oh, they're only human to justify animal-like behavior. In Yiddish, mensch means human also. But we say, that person's a mensch. You know when? When you transcended the animal, the inner animal. So we have two souls, the animal soul and the godly soul. Getting back to the second answer of Kabbalah, why the godly soul why would you take a godly soul and put it, imagine roommates, this is like the ultimate movie. And it's not a rom-com, it's more of like, I don't know what genre this is, it's like maybe a slapstick comedy. Imagine you take a godly soul and an animal soul and you pair it together, you put it in the same room, in the same dorm, who could have, only God could have thought of something so mashugah. So what's the point? You're punishing the godly soul, putting it with this, this frat boy animal. I don't know exactly how we would describe the animal soul, but like this crazy animal soul that only wants like instinct, that animal soul. King Solomon writes, who is wise enough to think, who is wise enough to consider and to realize that the spirit of the human rises above while the spirit of the animal descends below? And that's referring to every human being. There's the human spirit, which is a euphemism here for the godly soul. And then there's the animal spirit, which is the animal soul. And the animal soul always wants the next lowest thing. By the way, if you think you give the animal soul what it wants, you think it's satisfied? Oh, are you kidding me? Now that I got that, well, let me try something else. Like it's always a gateway to the next thing. And the next thing is never higher, it's always lower. Because now that's boring, I got to try something else. I got to just get in deeper and deeper and deeper into more earthliness, materiality, physicality, gashmiyut, physical stuff. Coarse. Say in Yiddish, grubkeit. What a great word for coarseness. And the human spirit, again, the godly soul, always wants something higher, the next upgrade. It's like, by the way, all right, I'm not going to tangent again. Getting back to this, so why would God pair up these two? This is like the ultimate odd couple. It's like, who would put these two together? Put two animal souls together, put two godly souls together, call it a day, or don't put anyone together. Well, what's this type of parent? Who made this shidduch? If you see this match, you're like, I don't know who the shadchan was. Shadchan would be the matchmaker, right, in marriage. It's like, who put these two together? That makes no sense. How is this ever going to work? Oh, opposites attract, not like this. This never is going to work. And so again, first answer was, well, if the godly soul can get out of this alive, wow. Right? If it can somehow, still like find moments of time to get, to close the door and like focus on something spiritual, even with the party outside, in the room, in the apartment, and can still like study some Torah and it's, under the covers. Wow, that's an amazing accomplishment. And in heaven, it didn't have the challenge. Here it does. But the second understanding is so much deeper. And that is, the soul is not here for its own benefit, not even for the benefit of flexing its ability to survive the challenge, but rather the soul is here to be an influence on the animal soul. Because maybe the animal soul will never totally rise above its reality and become a godly soul, but it can become a little bit more godly. You can train, I know I said a story about not training animals, but okay, so what? You never go back on things. Meaning, Kabbalah says you could train the animal a little bit. Maybe the mouse, maybe it's still going to run after the mouse, ultimately. But maybe we can train it to run a little less after the mouse, to run maybe one time less. Think about it. Do you have the ability? Do you and I have the ability? Like it's not really a thought experiment. It's more of a whole body experiment. Do you have the ability to take 60 seconds and not think, speak, or do anything negative? 60 seconds. Sure. Now, can you do it again? Sure. Okay, now keep on replicating that. But we have the ability to train ourselves in two ways. Number one is iskafia. Iskafia is a mystical term, and it means to hold back, to hold ourselves back, to withhold ourselves from something that we are tempted into doing. So for example, just using the cat and the mouse example, so we have the things that we might be very tempted to, is she stuck? Tempted to, oh no, she's in. Okay, perfect. No, what do you mean? I'm like, I have eyes behind my back. I'm like the teacher in school. I got mirrors in my glasses. No, because you could see. Anyway, I told you I like to sit over here. I shouldn't have revealed my secrets. I know all and tell. There's also a camera in front of me, and I could see the camera. I have a few different, I can check my mirrors on multiple levels here. And I can even see in front of me. All right, good morning, good to see you. Grab some breakfast if you'd like. So, iskafia. What is iskafia? Iskafia means you want something. Like you have in Hebrew we call it a taiva. You have a desire for something. Like you really want something. Do you have the ability to tell yourself no? Sure. Now, are you going to do it? I don't know. I mean, that's a practical question. We're saying, do you have the ability to do that? Yes. Great. I remember, I've told this story many times before, but I'll share it again. I remember I was 13 years old. And I was, for the first time, away in an overnight camp program called YSB, Yeshiva Summer Program in Morristown, New Jersey. I have a son who's was 14 just now this summer, and he, I say was 14 because he just turned 15. But anyway, he was 14 in the summer, and he was in the same program many years later, obviously. And I remember hearing about this concept for the first time. I was 13 years old, 13 and a half, whatever. When you're young, you go halves and everything. 13 and a half. I remember hearing about this concept of iskafia and how, like, for example, because there's a few fasts over the summer, the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. I remember hearing in the context of one of those fasts, like, okay, the fast is going to be over at, let's say, 9:17 p.m. Right, let's say. 9:17, it's over. Everyone runs to break the fast. Can you take 5 minutes and not indulge in the body, in the animal soul? Now, again, if you need to eat at 9:17, eat at 9:17. But if you could do it, can you exercise the strength to tell your body, which again, the body is is just, sorry, I don't know why I did that, but the body is just the hardware. It's the animal soul that's powering it with all of its desires and its hunger for food and all that stuff, right? So, okay. Even the biological hunger is not the body, it's like an energy in the body. So can you tell your own body 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute? Just only for the sake of asserting a little bit of. Now you might say, well, what you just asserted 12 hours or 24 hours on the body. Yes, but one might say that if one is, observing the laws of the fast, that's not really you, although there's choice always. Hey, good morning. It's not, ultimately there's choice, but it's not, it's still kind of top down. But can you, when you're allowed to eat, can you tell yourself, not no, but in a few minutes? Even that little shift is what we call iskafia. It may sound like a little shift, but as it says in Zohar, in Kabbalah, it says, Kad itkafia sitra akra, istalek yikar de kuchabricha b'chulamin. When you hold back the other side, the body, the animal soul, a little bit down here, it creates a tremendous light above. A little bit of self-control creates an explosion of divine light and energy for our soul. And so this is how. Wasn't there like a book or a movie or something, How to Train Your Dragon or something? Wasn't there something like that? Was that what it was called, How to Train Your Dragon? So this we might call How to Train Your Inner Dragon. And this is the second magical reason of why the godly soul was sent into this environment. Are you kidding me? The first reason is almost like to escape. Almost. To like find moments of escape. The second one is no, lean in. Okay, this is your roommate. You got an animal soul. Great. Turn to your animal soul and say, hey, let's do better. Let's be better. Let's be more in control. Animal-le, as you might call it. What's, you would have to have like a pet name for your inner animal. Like literally a pet name. Like Bubala, they tell a story about a kid who goes to school for the first day, first grade. The kid comes home. The mother says, Bubala, Yingala. Yeah, how was school? Said, great, what did you learn? I learned my name is Yankel. That's the joke. I didn't deliver it right. Because I always heard Bubala, Yingala, all these nicknames, and the kid never knew what his name was. All right, moving on. We'll tell better jokes. That's my resolution. Hold on a second. So what's the point? The point is your inner animal is waiting to be trained. And who's the trainer? You. Meaning your godly soul. That's the trainer. Every time you're faced with a choice between lower and higher behavior, between self-indulgence and selflessness, between self and other, between ego and God, and ego we might say is edging God out versus God, leaning into God. Every time we're faced with that choice and make the right decision, you know what happens? We train the animal soul a little bit. Are we ever going to completely transform it? When Mashiach comes, we'll have transformation. That's, transformation is at the end. But it's the process. In any great activity, we train ourselves to be more, exercise more, or be more, like in any area of life, if you train yourself to be more attentive, to be more, to listen better, are we ever going to be perfect? If we identify an area of challenge that we're going to work on, New Year's resolution, Rosh Hashanah is coming up. I hear 3 days from yesterday, 3 weeks from yesterday. 3 days, now we need to panic, 3 weeks from yesterday, right? Identify New Year's resolution. What do I want to improve in? Great. Are you going to master it perfectly? Likely not if we're being realistic, but can you make strides? Absolutely. And so the godly soul, in the second formulation, the godly soul is sent into this world, paired in a body with an animal soul that wants the opposite, to be an influence. I know what you're thinking. You mean Kabbalah talks about being an influencer? Yes. Before TikTok, before Instagram, there was Kabbalah. And Kabbalah says you be an influencer. You, godly soul, need to be an influencer. And to be an influencer, you need to be with someone who needs to be influenced. And I have the perfect match. And by the way, Kabbalah also teaches that your godly soul and your animal soul are perfectly paired with each other to drive each other crazy. More like from the animal soul to the godly soul. But that's why, by the way, it's easy to identify and fix someone else's problems. You're like, oh my, what are they doing? All they need to do is X, Y, and Z. You know why? That's not your animal soul. Your animal soul, number one, blind spots. You don't even see it half the time. Number two, when you see it, you're like, this is who I am. Oh, but that person definitely should just fix that. I got the 7-point plan to fix them. And you, and us, and me, and I. It's not so bad. Maybe tomorrow, next year. 5788 sounds like a nice number to hit, you know. Give yourself a year and 3 weeks to work on that. It's like, we got some time. That's what's going on. So the second formulation in Kabbalah is that the soul comes down here, not for its own advancement, but specifically to impact and to influence the animal soul. Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to, when I hear, maybe I'm not understanding correctly, about the animal soul being self-interest.
Yeah.
Or the term selfishness. And when someone is selfish, he only sees himself, doesn't see other people, isn't concerned about himself, or uses other people to manipulate his
self-benefit, yeah.
Self-interest. There was one time I was dog sitting, and there was a tornado in the area.
Mm.
And I didn't know the tornado was coming. But Molly, the dog, knew the tornado was coming. And she signaled to me that to get into the safe room.
Mm.
She kept on pointing the safe room. So if she was just an animal
With self-interest,
with self-interest,
she would have just hit herself.
what? She would have gone, she would have wanted, but maybe she wanted me to open the door for her to get in.
Right, nah.
But still.
You know what I think it is? You're asking a good question. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say is, so I think Molly taught me that she had love. Dogs can love, and they can, so she's supposed to be having an animal soul, but she's not demonstrating my concept of what you consider selfishness in an animal.
Right.
So maybe my understanding is incorrect.
Thank you for sharing that anecdote. That's a beautiful story. So the question on the table is, if an animal demonstrates loving and care, etc., is it my son, is it a sign that they maybe have a piece of a godly soul, or what? How do we square that? And I would say the following: animal souls can be very nice and loving and caring and giving. Animal souls are not only takers, they're also givers. But with the understanding that if I scratch your back, you'll scratch my back. There's always going to be, now, does that mean that animals can't have pure, unconditional love? Again, who am I to say yes or no? I'll tell you what Kabbalah says. Kabbalah defines the animal soul as something that even when it's doing an act of love or care for the other, there's always a sense of, but when I need something, I expect you to be there for me, which doesn't make it bad. That's why animal soul is not a bad soul. It's not an evil soul. You know, there is a way that you can kind of bifurcate, you can divide, you can lobotomize the human being and say good side versus evil. I have not used those terms today. I've not referred to the good inclination and the evil inclination. In some circles, you'll encounter that terminology. We have a good part and an evil part. You have to battle the evil and vanquish the evil part. It's not what we're talking about here. This is not good versus evil. This is normal. The animal soul is normal. It's not bad. It's normal. Survival. That's how things normally exist. Versus a soul that left to its own devices, by the way, would probably have a trouble like surviving because it would give away all of its stuff. That's not normal. The godly soul is the not normal soul. I say not normal. It's completely like out of the bounds of what we would normally expect. Every living entity wants to be. Everything wants to be. The only thing, and I've shared this many times in this class, the only physical element that I know of that demonstrates a lack of wanting to be, but rather a desire to reconnect and literally be subsumed into its source, other than the godly soul, which is metaphysical. The only physical entity that I know of that displays those traits is fire. Fire is the only natural reality that demonstrates a lack of wanting to be here. First of all, there's no fire. You want fire? You had to strike, you had to force it into existence. It never asked to be. You had to strike something to create a spark. Who asked you to create the spark? Number one, it didn't want to be here. Second of all, even as it's here, you have to hold it down. And even after you've held it down, you know what it does? It'll destroy whatever it is that you're holding it down until it can ultimately reach its aim, which is undoing itself. So you attach the fire, which you had to force into being, to a wick and to oil. Mazel tov, it's Hanukkah or it's Friday night, whatever, until it destroys, consumes, whatever you want to call it, all of the oil, and then it burns down the wick, and then it finally reaches its aim, which is to not be here. It didn't want to be here. It's very agitated. You take a candle and you turn it to its side, and where does the flame go? The flame points up. Fire always seeks its source. It's the only thing that I know of in the physical world that you and I can see and feel. I mean, not too much feel. It's hot. Careful with fire. That evokes this type of godly soul consciousness, akin to the godly, which is why, not surprisingly, King Solomon writes, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The soul of the human being, the godly soul, is a ner, is a candle of God, is a flame of God. Not surprising that those two are parallel. So what's the point? The point is that the animal soul is quite normal. The animal soul is quite reasonable. And the animal soul can be quite loving. I love you. I want you to love me also. I will be there for you. I will show up when you're not feeling well and I will give you soup. But I also would expect that if the tables are turned, that you're going to bring me soup. That's how it works. Can I be loving to the point where there's no self-agenda? There's no self-interest? Human beings can. Again, at this point, I'm going to bow out of, right, dogs, of the animal. And it's a Sunday morning. We're getting started on the week here with the puns and the jokes. You know, I have no interest to say, but animals definitely, maybe not. Human beings definitely have this godly soul, which is a chelik elokah, piece of God, and it is a completely different consciousness. It's not at all thinking about self and survival and instinct and reactiveness and what I need and what I want. It's about, what am I here for? And by the way, I will say, I think living an animal soul or a natural soul orientated life could be very frustrating after a while. It's like I wake up every day and I'm thinking about what I need. Oh my, I'm so needy. Wow. I need this and I need that and I need food and I need drink and I need water and I need sleep and I need a mattress to be this way. I need the pillow to be soft but not too hard and not too soft and not too lumpy and not too this and not too that. Oh my gosh, Genugshein. That's why Yom Kippur is so beautiful. Yom Kippur, we say to the body, can you take it easy for a day? It starts kicking and screaming, right? Like kicking and screaming. It's like, feel the body kick and scream. And you're taking that so seriously? Seriously. It's like you have a kid who's like throwing a tantrum. It's like, okay, it'll all be fine. It'll all be okay. It's all going to work out, right? You got to be the parent. You got to be the inner parent. Oh, this is modern psychology, parenting the inner self. Oh my gosh, we're touching on unbelievable concepts here. We got to reparent. It's called, maybe that should be the phrase. That should be the framing of this. The godly soul is sent into this world to parent the animal soul. I said train. Maybe a better terminology, more modern terminology is to parent your inner animal. Your inner animal needs a parent. It's throwing a tantrum. It's tired. It's hungry. It's this. It's that. It's offended. Oh my gosh! You saw how they looked at me? Oh, I can't believe it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take revenge. Shh, take it easy. It's all good. They're struggling. Can you find compassion? When someone's shouting at you, can you, instead of becoming triggered and shouting back, can you find it in yourself to take your ego out of it and think about the fact that if somebody is shouting and screaming, they're in pain. So instead of getting upset at their pain, maybe I can feel compassion for their pain and be more loving toward them. So why would I shout back? I should go over and give them a hug. Give a hug to the person who's shouting at me, the person who's berating me? Yeah. How about that? If your godly soul is in charge, is in control, that's what it looks like. Reparenting your inner animal. But to this, I was studying yesterday. Right over there. The other space over there, the other sanctuary. I was studying with someone, a few people, yesterday morning. And the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, he asked the following question, which I'm sure I've encountered it before, but it's an interesting, magnificent the way he frames it. He says, okay, that's a good answer for why the soul comes down to this world. But let me ask you the following question. The animal soul also comes from heaven. So how to become an animal soul? I don't know. God shows that this should come out the other end. I don't know. It's like, what? One way that Kabbalah speaks of this is, we speak about Manhattan, New York before. Subway, right? You can take, if you're going from Brooklyn to Manhattan or vice versa, you can take the local or the express. What's the difference? The local stops at every stop. The express, sometimes you can go from point A to point B. Boom, just like that. One stop, you're there. What's the difference? When you stop at every stop, so the whole composition of the train changes. It's like you got different foods coming in, different music coming out, everything changes. And everything, you're having different experiences at each stop. And the express, the way you went in is the way you come out. No difference, nothing changes. The godly soul is kind of like the express from heaven. It went in godly, it comes out to shoot godly, it's not affected. The animal soul, and Kabbalah speaks of the different worlds and dimensions, every stop along the way gets impacted to the point that when it arrives here, it has some self-interest. It cares about self. All by design. There's no accidents. It's not like accidentally the local line was created. Everything is by design. To which the Alter Rebbe asked the question. He says, well, wait a second. If the animal soul also comes from heaven, same source, same God, so why did God put the animal soul here to then need to put the godly soul here to fix or to help the animal soul? Why couldn't they both have remained above and everything would have been fine? So again, the whole question was, why does the soul come below? So he said, to resist the animal soul or to transform the animal soul, answers 1 and 2. Well, that's assuming there's an animal soul. Why is the animal soul here in the first place? We almost haven't answered any of the questions. Say, if you take for granted that there's an animal soul that provides a foil to the godly soul, then you can say, well, either it's to resist the advances of the animal soul or to reshape the nature of the animal soul. And both are fine answers, assuming that there needs to be an animal soul here. But why does there need to be an animal soul here? Keep the animal soul above in its source. Keep the godly soul above in its source. Everyone's fine. It's all, to quote some decades ago, hunky-dory. No one says that anymore. It's all fine. It's all kosher. It's right. Everything's right. We don't need all of this. Why this whole operation? So to this, give me a second, to this, we need to pull on the third answer of Kabbalah. And that is that when the soul comes below, when the godly soul comes below, it gains something that it could have never achieved or experienced above. And that is the ability, I'm going to paraphrase the expression in Hebrew, Re'iyat Elokut b'muchash. How do we translate that in English? Re'iyat Elokut, seeing godliness, b'muchash. Is that a modern Hebrew word? Tangibly. For real, tangibly. In heaven, because of the ethereality of heaven, even the perception of God is still ethereal. But here on earth, because of its tangibility and its literalism, right? It's like actually literal. I know I said before literal, that's not literal. This is actually, everything is here. I'll give you an example. It says in Kabbalah that the sweetness of an apple comes from chesed, the divine attribute of kindness. And if you read that, you're like, what's the divine attribute of kindness produces apples? This is alternative, science here. What does that mean?
There are stories related to that.
But I'll ask you a simple question. Have you ever said the words to some other human being that did something nice to you? Wow, that was so sweet. Have you ever said that? Have you ever used the word, the expression sweet for an action or for a person or for a thought? Or, oh, wow, you called me, that's so sweet of you. You thought about it, so sweet. Oh, you wrote a card or you sent me this. Yeah, it's so sweet of you. Why sweet? Because you and I know that there are sweet things that are physically sweet and sweet things that are conceptually sweet. So in this world, concepts become tangible. Sweet becomes something you can bite into. Not a concept, but something that you can taste. Here. God becomes something that's less theory and not a maybe theory, but a true theory, but still ethereal. And God becomes tangible where? Right here. You might be thinking, where does God become tangible? If you know how to perceive the world, and you look outside or look around or feel a table, you're feeling a piece of God. You're feeling something that is created by divine energy. You're touching. In heaven, you don't have hands. Can't touch God. But on earth, paradoxically, you can touch God. And so the third explanation, Lama yarda neshama lamata, why did the soul come below? Is it to resist the temptations of the animal soul? Is it to transform or to train the animal soul? Or maybe, the third idea, maybe it's to experience God in a literal way, like in no other space. And to this, I quote a teaching of the Rebbe quoting his father-in-law. He wrote a book called Hayom Yom, which is a daily calendar almost. Remember like the Far Side calendar? Calvin and Hobbes calendar? Or your favorite Peanuts calendar, like those little square things that you ripped off each day or something. It had like a comic strip or something. The Rebbe wrote in 1942, 43, the Rebbe wrote a full year's worth daily insights, one for each day, specifically earmarked for each day. And I don't recall which day this is for, but the Rebbe says something, and I wrote it in the email, and if you don't get the email, let me know, we'll get you on the email list. I wrote in the preview email on Friday the upshot of this statement for whatever day it is, and it is, there's an advantage that the businessman has over the scholar. Because the scholar encounters God in the books, but the business person who's out in the field encounters God in real life. Because when the business person realizes that deal only came through because of divine providence, because how did I happen to meet that person at the right time? And they were looking for the widget that I had, or I knew a guy who knew a guy, and I was able to make the connection and make some money. You say, wow, that was divine providence. You know what just happened? You encountered God's hand in your life. So yeah, you can study about God in Kabbalah. God created everything, and you're like, God is theoretically, you're learning in the theory, in the books, in the Sfarim, and you're learning in academic terms about God. But only in this world, and when you're out in the world, can you experience God, not in the books, but in real life. And that's an experience that is unique to the soul coming down to this world. So why was the soul sent down? It's not one or the other, it's all of the above. And the third explanation is in order to have a tangible experience, a physical experience that it could not have up in heaven. The soul can't touch God to that extent in heaven. So with this in mind, I'd like to move into reading some texts. We have about 15 minutes. The last two sessions before this one, I spoke outside the content of this chapter. But we didn't yet, maybe we read a little bit inside, but we didn't advance it too far. Today we're going to go and cover some ground. The text that we're studying, of course, is called Creation and Redemption. It contrasts the experience of the month of Tishrei, which we're about to start in a few weeks, with the month of Nisan, the experience of Rosh Hashanah versus Passover, Pesach. Those are the two poles of the Jewish calendar, 6 months apart. So, what we're going to do here again is, and I sent extra copies, so we don't need all of them. What we're going to do today is jump into chapter 7. Yes, it begins here with chapter 7, only because I'm making photocopies as we go along, and that is the way we do it. Give me a second. I'm going to pull it up here for our online crew.
In the past, you have said God wanted a place on earth, so that's why.
Yeah, that's included in the second answer. But let me elaborate, because what you're saying is very important. Why did God send the soul down here? To transform the world into a home for God. That's an answer that I've often given and that Kabbalah often gives. That is, I would say, included in answer number 2. Answer 2 was, it's here to refine the animal soul and the body, and that's also, when that fans out, that's also your space in the world, your corner of the world, and then hopefully it expands from there. That's all part of that soul as influencer perspective.
What was the first answer for that?
The first answer was, in order to gain the value of resistance, meaning, can you, to be faithful to God in heaven, there's no distractions. To be faithful, I use the example of like Vegas or whatever, to stay faithful, or Super Bowl, to stay faithful to God amidst the circus of this world, of this reality, of this life. To be able to, okay, so the soul above presumably is, whatever it's doing, is praying to God or whatever it is all day, whatever that looks like. But down here, if you take 5 minutes from Mincha, middle of the day, that's, one might argue, I think convincingly, that's more valuable than all of the prayers that the soul will say above, because that's devoid of resistance. Here, you still carve out time in the middle of your day. That's amazing. So the first reason is to have that experience of being able to overcome the challenges. The second one is to transform the challenges. And the third one is to encounter God in real life, which is something that it's like, wow.
So the first one is somewhat implementing free choice.
Yeah. Yeah, without resistance, the good is less significant than when you had the opposite option. It's only when you have the choice between one and the other, and you choose life, true life, that's when now that choice becomes significant. If you give a person one choice, only door number 1, and they choose door number 1, wow, you did a great job. It's like, what are we talking about? I did a great job. You only gave me one option.
But it's true also what Torah said, like God wanted Dira B'Tachtonim. If He would have created us any other way, it wasn't really any relationship. He doesn't really need this place.
Correct. Dira B'Tachtonim, a home on earth, begins here. Begins within. I'm not going to refine the world if I'm out of control. It's like with parenting. You can't parent your child if you haven't parented your inner child. Again, not to get too like modern psychology, but like you can't tell your kid or teach your kid to be in control if you're out of control. Stop shouting as you're shouting. That's not sending the message we think it's sending, right? That's not sending the opposite message. So if we want to tame the world into a place that's a little bit more consistent with divine values, then it begins at home, i.e. within ourselves, within our own animal soul, to get our own animal soul a little bit more on board with correct behavior. All right, so let's jump in. This is chapter 7, and we're going to start from the bottom of page 88, where it says Exodus from Boundaries. And we're going to touch on some themes that we expressed last week, which we have not covered this week. And then we're going to get into themes that we've touched on over the last hour or so of this class. Time flies when you're having fun. So I'm going to share my screen so that our online crew can follow along as well. And here we go. Exodus from boundaries. About this, and what he's referring to is revelation of the essence of the Ein Sof, meaning when God comes out of hiding. About this, the verse says, I am the Lord who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. This refers to the exodus from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, Egypt, is also related to the word, or literally the word Mitzrayim, limitations and boundaries, i.e. the Mitzrayim limitation of holiness that is the limitation and boundary of the worlds. What he's essentially saying is like this. The very fact that you and I don't see God immediately is all because of, like I said before, the fact that we exist in a physical reality, that our animal souls tumbled through the various stops along the way from heaven to this world and got influenced, and because of that influence, now it sees itself as real. It sees itself more than it sees the divine. And that's what constitute the limitations and boundaries of holiness. That means that essentially, holiness is hidden. God, this is an elaborate game of hide and seek. God is hiding, and our job is to seek. Let's continue on top of page 90. Through revelation of the essence of Ein Sof means the infinite essence of God. So through revelation of the essence of God, the exodus from the limitation and boundary of the worlds, there's a typo there. It says worlds occurs. So what that means is when God, if and when God were to remove all of the barriers and all of the boundaries and just completely be manifest and show up in God's full glory, there would be no game anymore. There would be no choice anymore. It would be obvious and clear. And there would be no limitation and boundaries of the world, because what are those limitation and boundaries? It's not just physical time and space and the contours of that. It's essentially not seeing God in all spaces. It's seeing a table and seeing it as a table. Or it's my ego saying, I need, I want, I love, I hate, I this, I that. And not seeing this all as within God's mind and imagination, and all connected with God. Let's continue. For it is from the Mitzrayim of holiness, it's from the limitations within holiness that the Mitzrayim, the limitations of the other side derives, i.e. the limitation and boundary of the lower realm. Which, what he's essentially saying is that where does a sense of otherness emerge from? It emerges from the original limitation that God places upon himself, as it were. We call that tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means self-contraction, where God almost, not literally contracts, but moves himself a little bit more inward to create a space for otherness, or a perceived space of otherness to exist. And in that perceived space of otherness emerges with self-awareness. Imagine if you were trying to create characters, and we kind of touched on this maybe a few weeks ago, or a week ago. You wanted to create, characters that became self-aware, or that were self-aware. That would be a cool trick. Imagine you write a book, and you gave them so much autonomy in this story, in this, that they actually become alive. That would be kind of cool. But they would still only be alive within your imagination. But they would feel that they're alive. That's kind of what's going on here. But how do they feel they're alive? Because you've hidden yourself. You as the creator, as the author, as the architect of all this, you've hidden yourself. Because the moment you come out of hiding is the moment the truth is seen. And what's the truth? It's all God. So the moment God steps out from behind the curtain is the moment all the facades fall down, truth is revealed, there's no more limitations. And then practical, tangible limitations fall apart also, like nature, the rules of nature. That's why what is a miracle, according to Kabbalah, it's God showing up. God no longer hiding behind the architecture of nature that he created. So he created a construct, and he hides behind that construct almost. And then if and when he chooses to come out from behind that construct, guess what happens? Miracles. Hence the Exodus. What is the Exodus? If not God coming out from behind that curtain. Let's continue. This refers, he says, second line of the second paragraph, second sentence in the second paragraph. This refers to the divine soul that is constrained within the limitation of the animal soul. And so he moves it away from kind of a macrocosmic conversation to a microcosmic conversation, away from the miracles of the Exodus and, the shattering of Egypt's pride and all that stuff, into you and I living our daily lives. And that's kind of where I started today's class, on the personal, on the human level. Because on the human level, we also have this reality. What is the divine essence versus the constraints? What is, right, we're contrasting God's, the Ein Sof and Egypt. Wow, incompatible, but one is born of the other one's concealment and all that stuff. Great, and how does that show up within us? You have a godly soul? Yeah. If the godly soul were manifest and open and revealed, would you know the truth? Yeah. By the way, we all have moments in our lives like that. Maybe it's a Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Maybe it's a birth of a child. Maybe it's going to the Grand Canyon and seeing, God's glory. Whatever it is for you. Or a moment, maybe it's losing a loved one. A moment where you had absolute clarity on what was real about life. What you were here for. And then what happened to that clarity? A day later, an hour later, a month later, a year later, whatever benefit of the doubt I'm going to grant all of us respectfully and respectively, at some point that once again faded. Well, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. The godly soul, like the Ein Sof of God, is hiding behind limitations by design. It's covered in the layers of the animal soul. Sometimes it breaks out. When it breaks out, clarity is clear. Clarity is clarity. Truth is truth. There's no question. Moments of epiphany, moments of clarity. It's like, I know why I'm here. I know what I'm here for. I love you and I will never stop loving you. And then what happened? Can you call me later? I'm busy. What happened to that unconditional love, unbounded love? What happened to that? I would do anything for you. What happened? It doesn't exist? Well, it still exists, but you're just not aware of it in the moment. Why? Because you're aware of other stuff. Well, you're aware of yourself, your needs. Hold on. I'm making some money now. I don't have time. Or I need to eat now. I don't have time. Or I'm whatever. I don't have time. That's the story of the human condition. So you drop your kid off at the airport to go to yeshiva, like I did this morning. And he's on a flight right now to LA. And then, like, in that moment when he walks and you see him walking, like, you're reminded of how much you love him. Not that you weren't reminded a moment ago when you were in the car talking with him, but it hits you a little bit deeper. And that's the way it works. But then it fades into the background. It doesn't fade, but there's other stuff. And so, is God in control of reality? Yeah. Is all of nature? And I'm flying with him tomorrow to Chicago to begin his journey. I'll be for a few hours. I'm flying in the morning, flying back at night. Please God. Bezrat Hashem. And so then what happens? Then it fades. And it doesn't really fade. But you just get distracted. And so this world, again, going back to the macrocosm, because it's fun to go in between. So the macrocosm, so it's all God. It's not God. This is all, this is everything that you see. Us, the body, even the animal soul. It's nothing but God. But it's God like hiding himself in the guise of an animal soul. In the guise of a table, in the guise of a tree, in the guise of another human being, in the guise of whatever it is. In the guise of atheism. I don't believe. Who gave you the ability to think you don't believe? What is that? That's also God. What's my point? Not to get too distracted with this. What's the point? The point is that all limitation is a product of the truth being concealed by design. All of the struggles that we have inside between higher and lower self is all a product of the fact that the godly soul is hidden inside of us, and what we feel most of the time, most of the day, is our animal soul and our body and everything that comes from that. Let's continue. When God created the human being upright, Yashar, man was created, listen to this, with the limitation that the powers of the divine soul must take on physical manifestation. See that? God takes a divine soul, a piece of himself, and then sends it into a physical reality to emerge and manifest physically. And it's not all bad. For the intellect and emotions of the divine soul are divine powers. The divine soul's yearning, striving, what the godly soul thinks about and what it wants in its heart, in its non-actually heart, not tangible heart, because the heart's the hardware. They're talking about the software now, right? What it wants emotionally, what it thinks about intellectually, all about God. And as they exist above, as these same divine soul powers exist not in human form, but in heaven form, before their descent to be vested in a body and animal soul, what they perceive is divinity. Literally, that's what they perceive. But once vested, excuse me, in an animal soul, they behave according to the capacities of the animal soul. You know what that means? Now you're in these terms, on this turf. You're in this environment. Nonetheless, when the powers of the divine soul are revealed, the person perceives divine concepts and is awakened with love and fear of God. And that is perhaps, one might argue, and I argue today, more valuable than its perception above. Because now it perceives it in a tangible way as opposed to in an immaterial way above. It perceives it in a very tangible, pragmatic way. I see God showing up in my life. I see God's hand. If I can look outside at nature, or I can just look through the reflection, as I've established before. If I look at nature, or I look at someone else, or I look at a challenge, and I see the divine purpose in it, you know what I've discovered? God in this physical reality. Not God in heaven, God here. And that's maybe even a greater accomplishment than discovering God in heaven. I don't think that's much of an accomplishment. However, it is possible. The risk, that's the reward. The reward is seeing God here. That's amazing. Seeing God tangibly, unbelievable. But there's a risk. However, it is possible that this being vested within the animal soul, the godly soul being encased in an animal soul, can completely conceal and cover the powers of the divine soul. The risk is it can get lost. Not really lost, but consciously lost. Where even the person forgets that they have a godly soul. Even the person forgets that they have something beautiful, divine inside of them. They start to believe the narrative that I am but an animal. And I am here only to survive. With all of the meanings of that. That means to rest and to eat and to sleep and pursue physical temptations and to get money and all of that stuff, the survival stuff. And a person can live 120 years and be taught that at home and be taught that in school and be reinforced by looking around at those that people adore and laud, that the purpose of existence is the greatest amount of survival. If I can be mitbashet, if I can spread myself out, the largest, I win. The biggest winner is the biggest, the most notches in my belt, the most people under my control, the most likes and the fans and the followers, that's what makes me alive. And a person can live a whole life like that. And not be conscious of, there's something, I'm here for a purpose. Most people get burnt out with this. Maybe they get a sports car to double down, but most people burn out. Because how many years can you feed yourself, literally and figuratively? And before it becomes like annoying. Again, so needy. Ask you a question: would you rather be needy or needed? Which feels better? Really, really feels better to needed. Someone says, "I need you for something. You're helping." You see, our animal soul will never tell us that. Or maybe it will, but whatever. But animal soul will never tell us that. Always say, to be needy is good. To be needy. Think about it in a space of, mental equilibrium. To be needy it's not a virtue. Shame, so needy. Ugh. Like you tell yourself, that's me. Ugh. A little gross. A little weird. Like, I'm so needy. I need this. I need that. I don't have that. Oh, the latest phone came out. I got the latest phone, but whatever. But I need that thing because I don't have it. Like, come on. Seriously. And you get it. You need more. I need more. It's not enough. It's a little bit embarrassing. It's a little bit embarrassing. Like low-key embarrassing. But to be needed, God says, I need you. I need you to make an impact. I need you to make the world a better place. I need you to work on this little animal soul project that I got for you. I need you. You wake up in the morning. I'm empowered. I have a mission. I have a purpose. I'm needed. That's a godly soul existence. It's hard to operate in that space consistently. We get inspired about being in that space, and we start the project, and then we slip back. And by the way, all by design. It's not an anomaly. There's nothing wrong with you or me. Same story. Everyone's got it. Everyone's got the same story. God creates it to be a struggle, and creates Kabbalah to remind us, and Torah to remind us of what the truth is. Let's continue. Let's continue for another little bit. This occurs. When does the godly soul become covered? This occurs with the strengthening of the animal soul's materiality. The more you feed it, the stronger it becomes, and the more challenging it is to break out of it, which diminishes and weakens the powers of the divine soul. The person then does not grasp divine concepts, meaning you're studying Kabbalah and you're like, what is happening? I don't even know what we're reading. Or even if he does grasp them, he does not grasp the divinity that is within them. Or it sounds like academic, like an intellectual conversation, not like a real conversation, not like a holy conversation. He does not perceive the divinity within the concepts. Intellect is perceived by the mind, divinity only by the heart. The question is, not only does your head work, does your heart work? Are you open emotionally? I don't even know if the right word is emotionally, but soulfully. Are you open soulfully to considering living a life that's a little bit more godly soul first? I wake up in the morning. What am I here to do? What is my mission today? What am I here to serve? God. Others. Oh, serve others. Oh, that sounds so terrible. Oof. Being service of others. Oy. Service. Ooh, servitude. That's like we've cut that out of the lexicon. Like all of this world's overcorrections. We went from cutting out bad elements to cutting out all the elements. No, it's good to serve God. It's good to serve a higher purpose. Even the Hebrew national hot dogs say that we answer to a higher authority. Let's continue. 2 more paragraphs, 92. But with the strengthening, I think we finished the paragraph, right? Yeah. But with the strengthening of the materiality and of the animal soul, divinity is no longer perceived. Of this it is said, my strength has stumbled because of my iniquity. Because of the corruption and crookedness of materiality, the powers of the divine soul stumble and grow weak. And by the way, this does not mean committing acts of impropriety. This just means maybe indulging even in the permissible, but being a little more animalistic than you need to be. If I'm a little bit more of an animal than I need to be, if I'm a little bit feeding my animal, he didn't say feeding it not kosher in the literal and figurative. He didn't say that. He said feeding the animal soul. So I'm not supposed to eat. I mean, on a literal level, eat. But maybe, tell yourself, 1 more minute. Just to keep it in check, right? Certainly look for a kosher sign on the thing. That's another way to keep, but even if it's kosher, it's skafia. Let's continue. Because of the corruption and crookedness of materiality, the powers of the divine soul stumble and grow weak. All of this occurs because there are limitations and boundaries of holiness. Meaning it's not like the animal soul magically has the power to push down the godly soul. It's because God created the structure. For after much devolution, there emerge limitations of the other side. When God hides, then that opens the door to other forms of limitation that conceal divine energy. So what's the moral of the story? I mean, you could say, well, we're learning how we got into this mess in the first place. Yeah, true. But as I started today's class, we're also learning why we're here and what the solution is. Because knowledge is power. If you want to know how to get out of it, you got to know why you're in the first place. So how to get out of it? Well, why are we here? We're here, number 1, to resist. Number 2, to transform. And number 3, to experience something that the soul cannot experience anywhere else, which is seeing God tangibly. And when you have that mindset, and you have the mindset of, I am a spiritual warrior, I'm not somehow a body, a physical animal or machine that's just having, a sojourn on this earth, but I'm a spiritual warrior that's been given a mission, that's been entrusted with the most sacred mission of all, which is creating a home for God and creating, a temple for God within my own body, within my own space, and walking with a consciousness of, here is God, not here here also is God, but here is God in the most tangible way. And I have a unique opportunity to find God and discover God in the physical and have that experience here. When you have that in mind, it can transform things like no other experience. It can take the challenges of this reality and make it seem purposeful. It can take the sometimes seemingly insurmountable challenges and make them manageable, because I understand that there's a context, I understand there's a framing, I understand that there's a purpose. And with purpose, like Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, when you have a why, you can overcome pretty much any how. How? Well, is there a why? If there's no why, if I don't know why I'm waking up in the morning, then even life, even breath can seem taxing. But if I have a reason why I'm getting up in the morning, if I know, hey, I'm empowered, I have a spiritual mission, God has put me here to do something amazing. Each and every single day. Well, then I will wake up with vitality and energy and positivity and accomplish that. May this week be a week of light and fire and energy and godly soul passion. May we feel, even when we feel, when we notice, because it's all about becoming aware, self-aware. When we notice the animal consciousness, recognize that this is all part of the plan. Don't get seduced by the animal consciousness, but recognize it for what it is. Say, oh, that's the animal consciousness. Put your arm around the animal consciousness and say, come, let's do something nice. Let's do something good. Let's do something positive. And with this, we'll transform it little by little. Yittle by yittle, little by little, we'll transform ourselves to becoming more of a mensch. Less of a human, more of a mensch, and get ourselves ready to stand before God and ask God once again to invest in us and be our King, as we'll do on Rosh Hashanah. Thank you for joining. Shavua Tov, everyone, and may it be an amazing week. Let us say Amen. Get your question in a second. Thank you, Mariana. Just to mention this week, of course, we have our Taste and Torah Club tomorrow at 11:30. Torah studies Tuesday night.
Because I tried to Google address, I cannot find it.
What? Taste and Torah Club?
Yeah.
Right over there. I can hit a baseball through a window. I would not hit a baseball through the window, but I could. Baseball through the window. Right over here. Daily Shul. You know where it is. Right here. The sanctuary. The little sanctuary. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. The door right there. That door that just swung open. Boom. That young man just came out of. Exactly. Follow the rain. Oh, it's too far. I know. I maxed out right here. I can't. There. Forget about it. There's a ramp even. Yeah. You can put on rollerblades and just skate over there. So that is that. Every week, by the way, we have 60 people. It's a very popular program.
Was it Tuesday night?
Oh, and the Tuesday night is Torah studies. We do Parsha.
Is that the Monday one? The Monday's one?
Well, hold on. The Monday is the Monday and the Tuesday is the Tuesday. The Monday is at 11:30 a.m. to 1. And then Tuesday night is 7:30 to 8:30. This week we have a special lecture following that at 8:30. It's going to be very special. And then what else do we have? 8:30. I wasn't going to mention it, but now that you asked, it's a visiting rabbi scholar from Connecticut, from New Haven, or as I like to call it, Jew Haven. I'm kidding. I've never called that before. New Haven, Connecticut. And he is a young rabbi who's just like a genius in Jewish law and a good communicator. And he's going to speak about unique Atlanta Shailot Utshuvot. Unique Atlanta halachic Jewish legal questions and the answers. Like Coca-Cola. How did Coca-Cola become kosher? The local Rabbi Tuvia Geffen, how to facilitate that. And questions about the Chattahoochee River. And other questions that are very uniquely, very local questions that came up. Big questions in Jewish law of a local interest, and the answers and the process about discovering that and everything. And so I don't know more because I didn't prepare the lecture, but this is what I know. I know it's going to be good. So it'll be 8:30 on Tuesday. Of course, everyone's invited. And we got a lot of good stuff. We're getting ready for our high holiday boot camp. This is not a physical workout, it's a spiritual workout to get ourselves ready for the high holidays. We do a pre-Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot class, 3 classes to get ready for the holidays. Check your local listings, i.e. our website, thetorahcenteratl.org, for all of that information. We do an educational service on both days of Rosh Hashanah, the night of Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre, and the day of Yom Kippur for educational services. Again, check the times on the website. It's a fantastic service. I call it a short service that's long on something. A short service that's long on spirit, maybe. Anyway, it's a tagline. Yeah, but you know what's even better? The actual service. If you like that sort of thing, that's even better. And that's on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and everyone's invited. Tell your friends, tell your friends' friends, and that's that. All right, good to see everyone. Questions, comments? Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Look at this, keeping me on point. Well, you know what? You know what would be annoying? If we finished everything, everyone left, and then I look down, I'm cleaning up, and I see a shofar. I'm like, no, you forgot to blow the shofar. There's a custom every day, not on Shabbat, but on the month of El, to blow the shofar, and it doesn't come through on Zoom. We've established that many times. Zoom. But let's close it out. Let's close it out because we gotta move. So here we go. Shofar. Custom is to blow 10 sounds. Holding on by a thread there at the end, folks. Maybe one of the reasons why we do it is that by Rosh Hashanah we'll get it right and nice, clear sound, but nonetheless. All right, good. Question, yes.
Okay, what I'm saying is, my understanding of why we're here is that